Hello. So, as you can see, the next video I'm going to do is Betrayal at House on the Hill. Figure it's almost Halloween. I know there's a bunch of videos on this game out there already, but just figured I'd do a Halloween themed game, and this is actually one that my family and I played last night. So, let me get on with setup and how to play. Alright, first you'll set aside this Trader's Tome and Secrets of Survival books. Those will be used later once the hunt starts in the game, but at the beginning of the game you just set those aside. Then each player will choose a character card. These cards are double-sided, so on this side, we have Heather Granville, and on this side we have Jenny Leclerc. And they have different starting values depending on the character you choose. So each person will choose one of the available characters, choose which side they're going to play on, and then you adjust these clips pointing at the starting values, which are the values in green. So on this one I would set it like so. So it has a speed of 4, she has a speed of 4, a might of 3, a sanity of 3, and a knowledge of 5. So each player will choose a character and set the clips to the starting values for each one. Next you'll shuffle the omen cards and put them in a face down stack where everyone can reach them. You'll also do the same thing with the item cards and the event cards. Then you'll find the basement landing tile, the entrance hall, foyer and grand staircase tile, and finally the upper landing tile, and put them in the table from right to left, within reach of all the players. You'll be adding to these tiles. But the basement tile is in the basement. Any tiles attached to the entrance tile here, this 3-room tile, that's the ground floor, and then eventually any tiles you attach here to the upper landing or are on the upper floors. You'll mix the rest of the tiles together, shuffle them up, and then just put them in a stack draw pile where all players can reach. Each player then takes the plastic figure that matches the color of their player. So this guy matches either side of the red player. This blue girl matches either side for the blue player. And this green boy matches either side for the green. Anyway, each player will find their plastic figure and put them in the entrance hall room on the board. And then you'll put all the dice in a pile somewhere near where all the players can reach them. And finally, you determine who goes first by looking at these player stats and see who has the next birthday. So Vivian's is January 11th. Brandon's is May 21st. And Ox is October 18th. And currently it is October 16th, so Ox would be first player in this game. And that's really it for setup for this game, so we're all ready to go. Let's talk about how to play. Alright, first thing we should talk about when learning to play is that each explorer, which is what the players are called during this part of the game, have traits: speed, might, sanity, and knowledge. And as we talked about at the beginning, you set them to the green number. Well, when you take physical damage, something tells you to take physical damage, then that's might or speed, and you can take that damage from one of them or a combination of both. So like if you took 2 physical damage, you can move your might down 2 or your speed down 2, or 1 from might and 1 from speed. And same with sanity and knowledge, but that's if you take mental damage. So if you take so many points of mental damage, you can take it either from sanity, knowledge, or split it between the two. Now, the first part of the game, you're just kind of exploring the house, and at a certain point, the hunt will start. Well, while you're just kind of exploring the house, if something would move one of your traits down to where the skull is, you wouldn't move it there. The lowest it can go is the minimum value above the skull. And the same as you can never go above your maximum printed value. Now once the haunt starts, if one of your traits would get lowered to where the skull is, then your character is dead and out of the game, unless the haunt that you're playing says otherwise, but normally you're dead at that point. So your speed, which here Vivian Lopez, her speed is 4 at the beginning of the game. That's basically the number of spaces that you can move. So on your turn, you can move up to your speed. If you move into a new room, so like Vivian is this green, if she decides she's going to move here and discover a new room, of course that would cost 1 point of her movement, and she can move up to 4. So she would move in to discover a new room. You draw from the room tile, and you look at the top here and make sure that that tile matches the floor you're on. Well, this entrance hall, foyer, and grand staircase, those are on the ground floor. So if Vivian was going to move in here, she could use this because it says ground floor, and she would flip it over, and then you just you place it so that the doors match up. You want to place it the best way you can so that you're not sealing off any other part of the house. Then she could move in there. Yet the other things you can do is if you have an item, you can use one or more of your items. If you are in a room where there is an item that's been dropped and there would be an item token in there, you can pick up an item, or you can drop an item, or you can make an attack if there's an opponent in there. But in this case, when you move into a room like this, some rooms may have an icon such as this. Well, if you move into a room with an icon, you have to stop moving. So even though she's only moved 1 and her speed is 4, so normally she could move up to 4, because she moved into a room that has an icon, she can't move anymore, and she has to draw an event card. That icon means draw an event card. So she would draw an event card, read it out loud, and do whatever it says. And then if she had some items or something she could use, she could still do that. Or if there was an enemy in there during the... But you won't have any enemies until the haunt starts. But if it was during the haunt and there was an enemy, you could still attack it. So when you have an icon and it makes you draw a card, that makes you stop your movement, but you can still finish your turn with the other things you can do, such as using items and omen cards, making an attack, and so forth. Now some rooms might have some special rules text on those cards, on those rooms. If so, if a room has both special text and an icon for a card, you draw the card first and do whatever the card says, and then if there's special text on the room, then you follow that. If the case had been where this tile, say that wasn't the first tile, and Vivian was going to move and she wanted to move here. Well, the first tile up here is basement. Well, she's not in the basement, so you just take that tile and set it aside. Well, there's another basement. So you just keep setting aside tiles until now this one is ground or basement. So she could use this one, and then again you have to place it so a doorway lines up. So she could place it like this or like this. So she decides I'm going to place it like this. Then she can move in there. and this one has an omen icon on it. So again, she would have to stop her movement at this point and draw an omen card. Now, only the first person to enter a room that has an icon draws that card. So later, if Ox Bellows here moved into this room, he would not also draw an omen card because of the icon. It's only the first person who enters that room has to draw a card. So the icons that you can have is it can have this event symbol. You draw an event card, read it out loud, do what it says. You can get an item if it has this symbol, room has this symbol. Then you would draw an item and you'd get to keep that. And again, like we just showed on that tile, if it has an omen symbol, you draw the omen card, and usually that's something you also get to keep. Now, when you draw an omen card, at the end of your turn, you have to make a haunt roll. And the haunt roll is to determine if the haunt's going to start. So the way that works is, say Vivian moved in here, she drew an omen card. We'll just look at this one, holy symbol, a symbol of calm in an unsettling world. Gain 2 sanity, so she would get to move her sanity up 2. And then if she loses this card in some way, she has to lose the 2 sanity that she gained. But she would keep this with her, and then it says make a haunt roll now. Really, it's at the end of your turn. So when you make a haunt roll, you roll 6 dice. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And these are custom dice. They're not 1 through 6. They're 2 sides have 2 dots, 2 sides have 1 dot, and 2 sides are blank. But that you add up the total. So here it would be 6, 7. If that is less than the number of omen cards that have been drawn, then that starts the haunt. So in this case, at the beginning of the game, there's only 1 omen card out, which Vivian drew. So obviously 7 is more than 1. But later, as more omen cards gets out, if that last card drawn was maybe the 7th omen card to come out, well, even if that was the 7th, we still rolled more than 7. But if you roll less than the number of omen cards that are out, then that starts the haunt. We'll get to that a little more on that in a little bit. Let's talk about a few more other things first. If as you're moving around and you needed to place, like you're on the ground floor and you've gone through the whole stack and there's no more ground floor tiles here, then you reshuffle the tiles that have been set aside and create a new stack. If at some point you run out of tiles for a floor, the ground floor, then there's just no more exploring that can be done on the ground floor. If you move to the grand staircase, then that moves to the upper landing. So say Ox, on his turn, he has a speed of 4, so he could move 1, 2, 3, and now if he wanted to move a 4th, he would have choose a direction, and he would have to draw a tile. Well, he could use this one because he's now on the upper floor, so he would flip it over and then decide, okay, I want to put this. If he said he was going to go here, then he puts it here. He would have to draw an omen card, and then this one does have some special text on it, which this one says, once per game, if you end your turn here, you gain 1 speed. So again, if he would draw the omen card, do or read whatever it says, and then if he's going to end his turn there, which he wouldn't get to move any further because he drew a card, he could still use some items or whatever if he had some. And then if he ended his turn there, he would get to increase his speed 1. But again, that's only once per game per player. If another player could move in there and use that also. But now you've started exploring on the upper floor. So you kind of keep your tiles that are the upper floor, the ground floor, and the basement floor separate. At some point, you'll discover a coal chute that leads down to the basement landing, or you'll discover some secret stairs or something like that that allow you to get to the basement also. You can't, when you're placing a tile, you can't place a tile so that it seals off a floor. If you draw a tile and any way you place it, it would seal off a floor so that nobody would be able to move to that floor any further, then you don't place that tile. You discard it and draw another one. Now, some event cards or item cards or omen cards that you draw may require you to make a trait roll. So, for instance, this event card, Burning Man, says a man runs, fire runs through the room, his skin bubbles and cracks, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you must attempt a sanity roll. So that's a trait roll. So when you make a trait roll, if in this case it's a sanity roll, what you'll do is roll the number of dice equal to that trait. So in this case, if Brandon Jaspers was going to make a sanity roll, he would roll 4 dice. So he would get 4, roll, his score is 4, 5, 6, and then, compare here. So 4 plus, so he would do whatever it says in that case. So whenever you make a trait roll, you roll the number of dice at the level you are at that trait. So if he had to make a knowledge roll, he would roll 3 dice. If he had to make a speed roll, he would roll 4 dice. If he had to make a might roll, he would roll 4 dice. If you ever move into a room, let's find a room that has an item token. That's an omen, event. Okay, so if you moved into this room, because it has that symbol on it, you would draw an item. So items, let's see this one, a smooth, ordinary looking rock. After you attempt a roll of any kind, you can rub the stone once and re-roll any of numbered dice. Discard this after you use it. So items are something you usually keep, and are usually, you can get weapons or something like this. And then an item, now this one, of course, it says you got to discard after you use it, but a lot of items are something you can keep and use, once per turn. But you can drop an item or you can trade an item. If you're in a room with another explorer, you can trade an item to someone, but you can't use an item and then trade it, or pick up an item and then use it. So on your turn, you can either use an item or trade an item or drop an item or steal an item. That's a special kind of attack, which we'll talk about later. Or you can pick up an item. Now you can do, if you have 4 items on your turn, you can use all 4 items, but you can only do, one action with an item. So you couldn't pick up an item off the floor and then also use that same item. So each turn you can either use it, trade it, drop it, steal it, or pick up. And when you drop an item, you'll get a item pile token like this. Say if Brandon here had this lucky stone, he hadn't used it and he wanted to drop it for some reason, then you would put that item pile token in that room. You would put that item pile token in that room, and then there's nothing in the rules that says how you designate that what item or items are in this item pile is equal to this item here. So you either just have to remember or find some way to designate that. Some people have suggested using like a monster token. There are some of these item tokens that don't say item pile, they just say like item 2. So some people have suggested like maybe putting item 2 under there and then getting a monster token like a number 2 monster token and putting it on there, and then so however you think best to designate that what's under that item pile is equal to this item. Then later somebody can come by into that room and pick up an item or items that are in that room, and then they would get, you'd hand them this card or whatever because they've picked it up. So now let's talk a little bit about attacks. At some point after the hunt starts, then you are going to either attack, one of the players is going to become a traitor, so you can attack that player, or usually that traitor will control some monsters, so you may want to attack the monster. Now normally in most cases when you make an attack roll, you'll roll your might, so it's kind of the same as making a trait roll. If old Brandon here, let's say he was attacking Vivian, it turns out Vivian's the traitor during the hunt, he would roll his might of 4 dice. So he got a 5. Vivian would roll her might, which would only be 2 dice, 3, and whoever rolls higher, the person that lost the roll has to take that amount of damage. So he rolled a 5, she rolled a 3, so she would have to take 2 physical damage. So she could, move her might down 1 and her speed down 1, or she could move her speed down 2. However you want to do it. Now, again, I said most times you'll be using your might when you attack. You may have an item or an omen that may let you attack with your knowledge or your sanity, and in that case the opponent has to use their same trait. So if you had an item that lets you make an attack with sanity, then the opponent has to defend with their sanity. If you're fighting a monster that does not have a trait, like if you were making an attack against a monster that didn't have a sanity trait, then you can't make a sanity attack against it. You would have to do a might attack. Even though your item said you can make a sanity attack, if the thing you're fighting doesn't have that same trait, you can't make that kind of attack. Now you may have a weapon, such as if you picked up an item, this axe, and it's a weapon. It'll let you roll 1 additional dice, maximum of 8 when making a might attack. So if Brandon had the axe and he was making an attack with his might, he would get to roll 4 plus 1 additional dice. So he would roll 5 dice when he's making an attack. Now, a weapon can only be used when you're attacking. If Vivian was attacking Brandon, and Brandon's rolling for defense, he doesn't get to use the 1 extra dice for his axe. He would just get to roll his 4 might. You only get to use your weapon when you're the one initiating the attack. There are some special attacks, like with the revolver. You don't have to be in the same room. You can attack someone with the revolver as long as they're in direct line of sight, which could be through any number of rooms, as long as there's a straight line of doors that allows you to see them. And then you can attack with the revolver. And in this case, it says you can use the revolver to attack with speed instead of might, and your opponent defends. You roll 1 additional die on your speed attack roll. If you lose, if you make an attack with the revolver, a distance attack, in other words, you're attacking someone that's several rooms away, even if they roll higher than you, normally in a normal attack you would take damage. If the person you're attacking rolls higher, you would take the difference in the rolls in damage. If you're making a distance attack, like with the revolver, and you lose, your opponent rolls higher, then they don't take any damage, but neither do you. The other kind of special attack is to steal an item. So you can attack someone, and if you would do at least 2 points of physical damage to them, instead of doing the damage, you can steal an item from them, as long as it's an item that says, it's a tradable, or if it's an omen. But if it says it can't be traded or something like that, then you can't, or stolen, then you can't steal it from them. But any other type of item like that, if you do, where you would do at least 2 points of physical damage, instead of doing the damage, you can steal the item from them. Again, all these attacks and everything can only be done once the hunt starts. Prior to the hunt start, everybody is, kind of playing cooperatively, exploring the house. And there are various tokens that might get placed out due to cards that are drawn. And now these little these containers that I have these tokens in don't come with the game. I 3D printed those, but I'm just showing you. These are small monster tokens. These are your larger monster tokens. But there's various tokens, like slide, drip, skeletons. These can be placed out, and probably will be placed out by event cards or something that are drawn. So let's talk about the hunt now. That's what changes the game dramatically. So as I mentioned earlier, anytime you draw an omen card on your turn because you moved into a room that has the omen icon, at the end of that turn you have to make a hunt roll. And if you roll 6 dice. If it's less than the number of hunt cards that have been drawn, then that starts the hunt. And to determine what hunt you're going to use, you look at the hunt chart, which is the first page of the Trader's Tome, and you'll look at what omen was drawn. So these are the different omens. So if the ring omen was drawn, and the person who drew that card, that you look at the room they were in when they drew it. So if the ring omen was drawn in the dining room, then you would be doing hunt 20. So you would look down here and you would see that Vivian Lopez would be the trader if she was in the game, or the person to the left of the hunt revealer. The hunt revealer is the one that drew the omen card that started the hunt, and that's how you look at the chart and determine what hunt you're going to play. So once you determine what hunt you're going to do, whoever it says is the trader will take this Trader's Tome, and they'll go look up the hunt. It'll tell you what hunt number you're going to do. They will go look up that hunt number down here and read what they've got to do to win the game. All the other players will take the survival guide, and they'll look up that same hunt number, and it will tell them any special rules and what they need to do to win the game. So at that point, whoever is the trader, their hunt may tell them they need to take a certain number of a type of monster token or something, and they'll control those monsters and themselves. So once the hunt starts and the trader has read what they need to do to win, and the hero players have read what they need to do, then the player that is the player to the left of the trader takes their first turn, and then all the hero players will take their turn, and then the trader player will get to take his turn, and then if he has any monsters out, he takes turns with them. Now, the hunt will tell what traits the monsters have, and they kind of move a little different. If it says the monsters have a speed of 4, then each turn that the trader player is going to play for the monsters, for each monster type, like if he just had all his monsters were cultists, and that said they had a speed of 4. At the beginning of the monster's turn, every round he would roll 4 dice, and that would determine how many spaces that the monsters can move. So in this case, even though their speed was 4, this round they could only move up to 3. Now if you have different types of monsters, you roll their speed to see how many spaces they can move for each different type of monster. But if it's, if you had 4 cultists, again, you just roll once for that group of monster type. Now during the hunt, even though you've been given a goal of what you need to do to win, you can still move and explore rooms in the house, just like before. Well, the trader and the hero players can still explore and add new rooms to the house. The monsters can only move in rooms that have already been explored. But another thing that's different is the trader player and the monsters, they can use beneficial text that's on a room tile, but they can ignore any harmful text, and the trader player can choose whether he wants to be affected by an event card or not. If you're in a room with an opponent, so with the trader or with a monster, it takes one extra movement to exit that room. So if Ox was the trader and Brandon was was the hero player, and Brandon's speed is 4, and he wanted to move to this room, well, it takes him one extra move, so that would be 2 to move into that room, not just 1. And same with the trader player and with the monsters. If you're in a room with an opponent, it takes 1 extra for each opponent in there. If you were in a room, if there were 2 opponents in here, it would take 1 extra for each of them. And as I mentioned, once the hunt has begun, then the explorers, even the trader is still considered an explorer. They can die at that point. So at any time before the hunt begins, if you had to lower one of your traits for some reason, you couldn't lower it to the skull. But once the hunt begins, you can lower it to the skull, and if you do, then your player is dead, and the hunt may say you do something special, but normally you would drop your items. Any companion you have would be in that room, and you would just make an item pile in that room that somebody can come pick up. Now, the particular hunt may say something different happens if you die, but normally. Now, when you're fighting a monster, if you defeat it, it'll have, the haunt will say what trait it has for might or whatever. So if you were making a might attack against this monster and you defeat it, it doesn't have, points that it can lose like you do on your card. So if it gets defeated, if you just defeat it by 1 point, monsters normally can't be killed. Instead, they get stunned. So you flip it over to the S side, and then on the next monster turn, that monster won't get to take a turn at the end of all the monster turns next round. Then any monsters that are stunned get flipped back over. So then on their next turn, they can move and attack or do whatever they're supposed to do. And just like the trader, I think I mentioned this, monsters can ignore any harmful text. There's some rooms, like the coal chute, that the players can slide down into the basement, but you can't. But they can't come back up. That the heroes can't, but the monsters can. As I said, the monsters can't explore any new rooms. The trader can, and the hero players can, but the monsters can't. And usually monsters can't carry an item unless the particular haunt says that they can. So you'll keep playing until one side has, either the trader player and the monsters have met whatever the haunt says is their goal, or until the heroes have met whatever their goal is. I'll just, for the particular game that I played last night with my family, the hero players, they needed to get buckets of paint, and go find. They were spread about the house, and they had to go pick up these buckets of paint and go throw them in this pentagram room, to desecrate the pentagram room. And they had to throw a certain number of buckets of paint in there for them to win, while the trader player had to kill heroes, a certain number of heroes, and or companions. Companions you can get through omen cards. Had to kill them, and take their corpses to the pentagram room, and if they got a certain amount of corpses in there to sacrifice, then they won. So in last night's game, the traitor player won. So that's just an example of what a haunt might be. And the haunt may have special rules for that I haven't mentioned. And anything that, the haunt or survival guide or any text in a card that overrides the basic rules, those take precedence. So that pretty much sums it up. Let's go over a couple of quick turns, example turns, and wrap it up. So we start with the 3 explorers in the entrance. Again, the person with the next birthday, which among my players we determine is Ox. He's going to go first. So he has a speed of 4, so he can move up to 4. So let's just say he wants to go 1, 2, and then he goes up the stairs 3 to the upper landing, and then he wants to go this way. So the first tile there is an upper floor, so he can draw that. Look at it. Again, if there's both text and a symbol, you do the card first. So, he draws the omen card, which I just put that back on. That's the holy symbol. So he gains 2 sanity. So let's move his sanity from 3 to 5. So his starting sanity was 3. It's gone up 2, so now it's at 5. Again, if he ends up losing this omen, he has to lose that 2 sanity that he gained. Because he drew a card, well then he moves in there. Then we look at the text. You can choose to fall to the ballroom if it's in the house. Well, we don't have the ballroom in the house yet. If you do, take 1 die of physical damage. Well, the ballroom's not there, so we don't do that. But he does have to stop moving because he drew a card, and because he drew an omen card, we now have to roll 6 dice, and if we roll less than 1, so we would have to roll all blanks, then the hunt would start. Which, no, obviously it didn't. So the hunt doesn't start. He doesn't have any items or anything else he can do on his turn, so pretty much that's the end of his turn. So now we go to the player to his left, which is Brandon. His speed is 4. We'll just say he wants to go 1, and then he's going to go here 2. Well, the first tile here is an upper floor, so we don't need that. All right, ground floor, so he can use this one. Now he can put it however he wants. He's going to put it like this. So that's 2, but now he's got an omen card, so he's going to have to stop moving and draw an omen card. And he got crystal ball. Hazy images appear in the glass. Once during your turn, after the haunt is revealed, you can attempt to knowledge. So this is only helpful to him once the haunt is revealed, but he'll keep that. Again, he has to stop because he drew a card. He doesn't have any items or anything to use, so that's pretty much all he can do at this point. So now we go on to Vivian. She has a speed of 4. We'll just say she's going to go this way. So this first tile's upper floor. That doesn't help her. Here's a ground floor, so she draws that tile. And she puts it, this is the only way it can go because the door's got to attach. And it has both an event and some text, but you draw the event card and do it first. So she draws an event. Mystic Slide. If you're in the basement, which she's not, this event affects the next explorer to your left not in the basement. But since she's not in the basement, it affects her. Discard this card if all explorers in the basement. They're not. The floor falls from under you. Place a slide token in this room, then attempt a might roll to use the slide. So I got to find the slide token. Okay, I found that. I put it in the room. Alright, and then we got to attempt on a might roll to see what happens. So again, my might is only 2. So I got a 3. So 0 to 3. Draw tiles from the room stack until you draw a basement room. Place the room tile. If no basement rooms are in the stack, choose a basement room tile. You fall to that room and take 1 die of physical damage. If it's not your turn, don't draw a card for that room. Alright, well the next tile up does have basement, so now we have to place it adjacent to a basement tile, so we'll just put it right here. And then I've got to take 1 die of physical damage because I fell. So I take 1 point of physical damage. So I can take that from speed or might. I'm going to take it from speed and lower my speed 1. Alright, my speed is still 4, but you'll see I've lowered it down 1. So now I've fallen into this room, and because it is my turn, I now have to draw another event card because I've fallen into this room. And this card stays near the Mystic Slide because it says here, because it says on later turns your explorer can attempt, on later turns any explorer can attempt this roll to use the slide, so if they wanted to get down to the basement. Alright, but now I've got to draw another event card. So I draw this one, Burning Man, this one we saw earlier. Man on fire runs through the room, his skin bubbles and cracks, falling away from him and leaving a fiery skull that clatters to the ground. You must attempt a sanity roll. Alright, my sanity is 4. So I'll roll 4 dice. And I got, only a 2. So 2 to 3, out, out. You must get out. Put your explorer in the entrance hall. And that's kind of a conundrum to me because she's in the basement with no way to really get where she could normally really get to the entrance hall. But it says to put her in the entrance hall. So I don't know, that might be something. I haven't had a situation like this come up, but that might be something where you wouldn't really do that. But it says cards override the rules, so I put her in the entrance hall. Somebody made comment on the video on what you should really do in that situation. But anyway, she had to draw a card, so that would end her turn. Then you just discard event cards that are used if they don't say they stay. So then we'd go back and it would be Ox's turn again. And again, you could see he could move. He could keep exploring this way, or he could move here and explore this way. Anyway, I don't want to spoil too much by showing too many event cards and item cards and stuff, but I think you get a good idea of how the game plays. And then again, as I said, once you have to make an omen roll and get less than the number of omens that are out, then that starts the hunt, and then the game changes completely. And again, I don't want to spoil anything by showing what it says in the survival guides or trader guides, but I've kind of explained how the game changes. So anyway, that's pretty much how the game plays. I played it last night with my family. That was the first time I played it with anyone else. I played it last weekend by myself to learn it. It's kind of an odd game. Just the 2 games I've played. When I played it by myself last week, I didn't care much for it at all. Playing it last night with my wife, my younger daughter, and my older daughter who's in town visiting. We actually had some fun with it. I thought it was fun. I mean, it's pretty random what happens, so I don't know that there's any much skill involved, at least as far as I can tell, in actually winning the game because there's so much randomness. But just for kind of a fun Halloween-y themed game, I think it was fun. So I don't know if I if I could recommend it, other than to say, if you're looking for something to play, like on a scary Halloween party kind of thing or something like that, it's pretty fun. But if I had a choice between playing this and Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition or Eldritch Horror or something like that, I would probably choose one of those other games. But I don't know how I got this on Amazon for like $25, so it was pretty cheap. And like I said, I had fun when I played it with other players. So take it at that. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.